So doing what we want to do here. This is, I guess, our fifth show. Is technically challenging. It's amazing. I mean, this is like the first time in my life, because I've done sort of guest-driven shows most of my life. This is the first time in my life that I've actually found that people are available, right? Normally they avoid you, and now it's like, well, I'm not doing anything, and that'd be great. And also there's this sense of people wanting to be community minded.
Yeah, I think you're right. Also just makes it very easy because no one can use the excuse that they can't get there or can't be there. You're at home.
So when you so there's no secret. So again, you wrote me a little bit of background about you. All of that is available. Oh, you got the audio to work, Phil. Look at you.
The one place where every day you can turn and say, hey, you know what?
That's okay. It's social media. You can be late. Okay, no problem. Yep.
To answer your question, Michael, though, yeah, nothing's off limits.
Okay. Talk, Case.
How long?
We're just about ready to go. I think he told Pratap to go and fix his hair, that he looked like a disgrace. I heard Phil say that. Hey, Phil, have you framed Pratap up yet? Oh, okay. He's slouching.
I might.
Famous last words.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. No, actually, you didn't say anything bad. You want bad. Oh, you know how many careers have been killed by intercom? Oh my God. Yeah. Okay, so just to go over this, you're going to play the open, then you're going to come out to a two-shot. Me and Amanda, we're going to talk for a while. Then I'm going to bring in Pratap Chokka, the doctor, our expert. I'm going to say to you, Amanda, you hang on. I want to talk to him for a few minutes, and then we'll bring you back in, and you guys can interact. And it's all about giving people your own personal experience. Your own sharing, Amanda, will make a difference in other people's lives. We try to put on people like you who are recognizable because there's something more powerful about that. But we want to make it loose, and we want to make people smile at the same time, because if it's somber and dark and down, people won't watch.
Fair.
Right.
Just so you know, I said somber and dark and down, not brown. That would have been very offensive.
No offense taken. I don't know why I'm speaking up, but no offense taken.
All right, here we go. Thanks, guys. Okay. Okay.
And a
which no one thought I would.
We can't hear you. No.
April 7th, day 5. Wait a sec, there's still more. Day number 20, wearing pants with no button. I can't be bothered to keep drawing pictures and stuff like that. I'm too busy. Kind of looks like diners, drive-ins, and dives a little bit, doesn't it? Oh my God, you know who that makes me? Real creepy.
Put those sunglasses on backwards.
You know, I'm not going to do that. This is Isolation Nation, the one place where every day you can turn and say, hey, you know what? There's somebody out there that understands me. We have two great guests today. Dr. Pratap Chokka, a psychiatrist from Calgary. I met him at a conference, and the only way I could get an appointment with a psychiatrist was to book him, was to create a show and then book him for the show. He's going to give us some tips on handling one of the toughest times for many of us that we've ever experienced. And Amanda Crew, you may or may not know the name, but you'll recognize her face. She was in Silicon Valley. I loved that show. She's been in a million other things as well. One thing about Amanda Crew, she knows how to work a talk show, that's for sure.
Sorts of competitions, who's the rudest. And I actually won who had the palest stomach, which no one thought I would win because
How does that even come up? Who has the palest stomach?
I think Thomas was getting mic'd, and I was like, wow, your stomach's pretty pale. Not as pale as mine. He's like, I doubt your stomach is paler than mine. And so I pulled up my shirt, and I won. I mean,
Oh my God, that has got to be the dream, to be on late night talk show with Conan O'Brien, to be in a hit television show called Silicon Valley. Amanda Crew, we're proud of you because we're Canadians. And when a Canadian does well in the United States, we kind of worship that. How are you, Amanda?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm great. I kind of, and this is a sports term, but I'm great with an asterisk, meaning, it's kind of like, yeah, I'm great, but maybe not great the way I was 2 months ago. But in spite of everything, I'm great because I kind of feel like we're useful. And when I say we, our charity, SickNotWeak, I kind of feel like it's a really important time for us to step up. When I was, when we were picking clips, we picked that clip from you and Conan O'Brien. You actually, we didn't show it, but you actually, you compared stomachs with him, right? To see who was paler.
Yeah, I have a very extremely white stomach, and he thought he might have a paler one, but turns out we have very blindingly white stomachs.
I think, my daughter's sitting across from me now. She works on the charity, and she would probably contend with your paleness. She would be very proud to say that for sure. Okay. By the way, it was Final Destination 3 that you were in?
Yes. Yeah.
I was watching the scene with the roller coaster, and I didn't see the movie. I know your feelings are really hurt that I didn't see the movie, but were you on that roller coaster when it crashed?
No, I was well.
Thank God.
I think no. Well, it's up for debate about the ending. So, I mean, but I didn't for filming. I didn't have to do the roller coaster, whereas like the other cast members had to ride it 20 times in a row, and everyone was getting sick.
Yeah, that doesn't sound so good. Okay, so Amanda, you grew up in British Columbia. What city? What town? I
grew up in Langley, British Columbia.
Right.
That's where I grew up.
Yeah, and you, in growing up, you had some really bad experiences that affected you for the next portion of your life. I know from you told me your story that you buried it. You felt like you had to be the best person on the planet to make up for it. And when you added all of that up, what were the laundry list of mental health challenges that you had?
Laundry list is a good term for it because there was a lot of different ways that my pain manifested, from anxiety, depression, OCD, hypochondria, germophobia, and eating disorder, which is probably the most loudest of that laundry list. And the eating disorder was kind of what kind of took me to a breaking point where I had to reckon with what my life had become and seek out help to kind of remedy that.
Right. And what, when was that you sort of turned the corner, at least of acknowledgement that you got to deal with this, or,
When
who
I
knows
was,
what?
yeah, I think I was 22 when my eating disorder got completely out of control. I was living in Los Angeles and really struggling to kind of find my place and my sense of self here, and kind of crippling under the pressure and unknowns of the world of acting. And I had gotten very, very thin, and also was smoking cigarettes and drinking a lot of coffee. And I went for a hike and I ended up collapsing. It wasn't like a collapse faint. I just lost my footing, but I ended up breaking my knee. And the symbolism of it all, of being forced to literally stop. Like I couldn't move, like I couldn't, working out excessively was part of the eating disorder. And so I couldn't do that anymore. And so it really forced me to kind of confront myself, and was a very sobering moment in my life where I kind of had to really take stock of what my life looked like. And did I want to continue down that path, or did I want to work to heal and recover?
Amanda Crew is with us. We have a psychiatrist in waiting. As I said in the opening, the only way I could get an appointment was with a psychiatrist was to book him for the show. So you and I, Amanda, are going to have like this amazing consultation with him.
Wait.
Unless he comes on the show and says, "Well, I can't talk to you for 18 months. I mean, I got a waiting list. I don't want to look like I'm desperate."
And he's going to charge us $500 each.
No, he's a psychiatrist, and we're in Canada, so he can't. We have universal medicine.
I'm thinking American.
Yes. Yes, exactly. He's probably thinking that way too. But Dr. Pratap Chokka is going to join us from Edmonton. He and I met at a conference, I guess a couple of years ago, for mental health professionals and me. Now, why the hell I was there, no one actually knows, I don't think. But I want to continue with this story, and I want to tell people that if you have a question for Amanda or for the doctor when he's on, or now if you want, fire away. And Amanda, so this was 10 years ago, right, or roughly. You acknowledged the fact that you had serious mental health challenges and that you had these battles that you needed to address. And then fast forward now to, say, 6 months ago, before any of this coronavirus happened. What was your mental health like then?
So I started seeing a new therapist about 2 years ago, and I'd been doing a lot of work prior to that, but I feel like everything took a massive shift when I started working with this particular therapist. I'd gotten to a place in my recovery where it felt like it was manageable, and that, I was okay, but I was dealing with a lot of anxiety daily and bouts of depression, and felt like I'd gotten the eating disorder to a place where it was no longer ruling my life, but it was just kind of this voice that I was always having to deal with. And through working with this therapist that I started with 2 years ago, I feel like everything took a massive shift. And it's so 6 months ago, working on, with my therapy, but my anxiety and depression has been in a really stable place. And my eating disorder, part of why I'm so passionate about speaking out about it is there's this thought that you eating disorders aren't recoverable, like that you always kind of have to live with an element of it. And my experience, and everyone has a different experience, but like I want to share that, like, you can recover from an eating disorder. You can have a full recovery and live a full life. And I feel the same way about depression and anxiety and OCD and all of that, is that you are able to live a full life. There is hope out there. It's possible. It's work, but it's absolutely available to everyone. But it's a journey, and it's a process, and it's a lot of steps forwards and a lot of steps back. But that's all kind of part of it.
One of the things you wrote at the end of your note to me a couple of hours ago was that you're an open book. Nothing's off limits. So when you were on Silicon Valley, did people on that show know about your battles with an eating disorder, with depression and anxiety, and that whole, as I said, sort of laundry list of problems? And did they know the origination of the problem?
Yeah, I think, when we started the show, because it was probably 7 years ago, I was not that open about all of that. And there was a real shift in that kind of around the time that I started working with this therapist, but I think also the Me Too movement was happening. And I realized that I had never spoken openly about my eating disorder up until that point, and really kind of had to look at like why I had never talked about that. And, it was shame, that there's a stigma attached to eating disorders and also depression, all of that, you're weak or you are, especially with eating disorders, that it's very misunderstood and believed to be kind of like an obsession with wanting to be skinny and vanity. And it's so much more than that. And so I think I feared that if I was open about it, people would judge me, and that's why I kind of remained quiet about it. But with everything that was changing politically, I felt that it was important to share my story, because if it was shame, that was the very reason that kept me in my eating disorder, that I didn't seek out help for so long, was because I was embarrassed that I was struggling with this thing. And that's the same with depression and anxiety. It's like it breeds in shame and secrecy. And it's the very thing, though, that keeps us quiet, is that fear of being judged. And so it's kind of like this cyclical thing that keeps you stuck in it. And there's so much power that I've found in talking about it. And part of my healing has been my coming out story with it, and meeting other people who suffer from these same things, and not feeling so alone or so alienated by it, or that there's something wrong with me and that everyone else is like got it figured out, but I'm the one that's messed up. And you realize that we're all kind of messed up.
I'm just sitting here listening to your story, and I'm nodding my head, and I'm thinking back to yesterday. We had an entrepreneur named Brett Wilson. If you ever bump into him, just say, dude, why are you going with an initial before your name? You're a great guy, but the W, I don't know. And Jessica Holmes, who's a terrific comedian who wrote a book called Depression, the Comedy. And my point is that I nodded my head through their stories as well. At a certain level, Amanda, we all feel the same things. We all feel this same fear of being found out, and we all feed into our own illness with that fear. Because if you don't tell anyone about your battle, if you keep it a secret, what message are you sending internally? And that is that you have something to be ashamed of, because otherwise you would talk about it. So I think as you're telling your story, first of all, is you justify talking about it by the amount of people who are nodding and going, yeah, you know what, me too. And when you hear someone else say it, it doesn't sound quite as scary. So, good for you. And while you may have used it as part of your healing, it's also part of other people's healing. So, I was going to say I loved hearing your story, but that would be kind of insensitive. I loved hearing I loved hearing you tell the story. So let's go to 2 months ago. COVID-19 doesn't really exist. We heard about stuff in China, and then all of a sudden it seems like we go from don't worry about it to don't leave your house, lock your door, don't go outside, don't talk to anyone, put on a mask and gloves. What has that done to your mental health?
You know what? Actually, this COVID-19 has oddly been a deepening in my recovery, and of more of like my OCD, germophobia, hypochondria, because it's really forced me to confront that in me, because what's happening right now is literally my worst nightmare. Like that there's this contagion out there that's going to get me, and like I can get it just by touching stuff and like dousing everything and in bleach and everything, and I could really go down a dark path. And but had this not happened, I wouldn't really have to confront it, because you can kind of keep it at bay, those thoughts, like it's not too bad, it's not overtaking my mind. And so it's actually been, for me, I feel like an opportunity to really look at the stories I tell myself about illnesses and my body and getting sick and everything, and really confront those things. And it's been quite healing for me, which is really a controversial response to it, but it is, I feel like there's an opportunity there for everyone to kind of look at what is it bringing up in you. And because those aren't new things. They're things that have always been there. They're just coming up because they're being, brought up with everything that's happening. And so there is an opportunity to really kind of look at that stuff.
I'm nodding my head again. Pratap is on with us right now. We're on Zoom, and I don't know if your mom's alive. If she's not, it's insensitive, Pratap. But she would, if she was here, she would go, "Sit up straight, Pratap. You look like you're slouching." So how are you, buddy? Nice to chat with you. As I said, you and I met a couple of months ago. Amanda, you stay on the line, and you feel free to pipe in when you want. Doctor, how are you?
I'm doing really good. It's great to be on. Hey, and Amanda, if you want a little bit of browning of your belly, I could help, I think, and share some of my pigments with you, hey? It's ironic.
Lord knows I could use them.
Well, it's funny because, being a brown kid on the prairie, I think I wanted a white belly when I was a kid. It's weird how priorities change depending on where you're from. But nice to be here, Michael, and listening to your story, Amanda. It's so common. You hear this every day as a psychiatrist, but story is one of strength and resilience, which I think is really a message of hope. I like that.
Pratap, one of the things you just said is that it's a common story. But what's so bizarre is that it's like we're all in this closet, right? And my experiences are different than Amanda's, but in certain ways, they're identical to Amanda's. And my experience with mental health and anxiety and depression are similar in that regard. And it's like at one point you think you're the only one, right? This is one of the symptoms, I think, of depression, that you think you're the only person. So you're in the dark, you're in the closet, you're not telling anyone about it. And then someone opens the closet door just a little bit, and you go, "Oh my God, I know that person." And that's Amanda Crew from Silicon Valley. And that's my neighbor. You find out that not only are you not the only one, but there's a ton of people who who are experiencing the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I got to tell you, Michael, your story, Amanda's story, and other stories of people living with these conditions are so much more powerful in helping others come out with their own stories of mental health, more so than, I've been doing this for about 30 years, and more so than physicians and education that we do. When your personal lived experience comes out, it is such a powerful story. And I think that's what we need more of, to help people who live in shame to come out and get help, because we really can make a difference. And the earlier we can get our young people to get help, the better we can do. Like Amanda, your story is amazing, but every day I see people, much older, in their 30s and 40s and 50s, tell me how their life could have been different if they got help earlier. And so that's another thing, is we don't talk enough about prevention or early intervention, and so I'm hoping that these kind of things that you're doing, Michael and Amanda, are going to make a huge difference for people that are listening to this.
Pratap Chokka is a psychiatrist in Edmonton, whom I guess it was a couple of years ago at I don't know if it was a conference. I still don't know why I was there, to be honest with you. And the guy beside me was a psychiatrist, and the reason why you and I bonded was I thought, that guy's got some personality. There's not a lot of personality in this room. But the guy actually had the nerve, a psychiatrist, to say to me, "Are you bipolar?" And I went, "No, I suffer from depression." He goes, "Oh, you seem manic." It was like he was accusing me of being manic. And I thought, that can't necessarily, I didn't care, right? You can't possibly offend me. It's impossible. But I thought, I'm not sure that goes by the rules.
Well, I was there at the conference, and I'm wondering what I was there as well, Michael. But it was great.
Everyone at this conference had no idea why they were there.
But we connected, and it's been good.
Okay, Amanda, why don't you fire a question at the doctor, and then I will ask him. We got a whole bunch that people have messaged to us, and I'll ask. So, Amanda, this is your time to step up. It's not $400 an hour; it's all free. But then again, we're in Canada, where we believe in universal medicine. Okay.
Well, no, I really appreciate it. I feel like you have such a refreshing perspective on mental health and treating mental health. And I was actually curious, you were talking about wanting to introduce more preventative measures earlier on. And I'm curious, just generally, like what in your dream world, what does that look like? 'Cause I think that's beautiful.
Well, one of the things that we know, you guys, is that almost 75% of these disorders we talk about are present before the age of 20 to 25. So most mental disorders are diseases and conditions of childhood. And when I talk to my patients every day, once you've kind of identified what they are, they'll say, you know what? I remember as a teenager, I was like this, but people thought I was, a drug addict, or I was a personality, or I was off the wall and so on. But now it makes sense that this was the beginning of an ADHD or a bipolar and so on. So if we know that most of these conditions start early, we also know that this runs in families. So if we can educate our parents to be aware of these symptoms in children, we can probably intervene at a much earlier level. And there are centers across, mainly in the United States, some in Canada, that are looking at at-risk kids, right? And through the family, we can identify the early symptoms, and then we can look at treatments much earlier on. The problem with mental health is mental health disorders is from the time you actually experience symptoms to the time you actually get formally diagnosed is often years to decades, Amanda, right? Yeah. And by that time, there's so much social problems and academic and work issues and substance use that you've used to medicate it. So earlier intervention, I think, will make a huge difference in the future. The platform of how to do that is complicated, but I think we're beginning to do that now with some of the things that we're seeing on social media, with some of the school programs. We're trying to do that at our center. I'm an adult psychiatrist, although I've been told I'm not much of an adult at times, but but we're now seeing kids in our clinic because I've done this for so long. By the time our child psychiatrists get to them, boy, it's a long wait list. So can we talk to the family? And we're starting to see in our program here at the center as young as 12, because I think that's when the puberty kind of changes things. We want to make a difference.
That is appropriate. See, here's the thing. When you have a psychiatrist like you, accessible, you sound like you're speaking everybody's language as opposed to the language that psychiatrists speak. What you're saying to Amanda is appropriate for so many of us. Here's a question on Facebook. Case, you want to hold it up for me again? Case is translating. What can I do about the constant worrying about COVID-19? From a Facebook viewer.
All right. I mean, geez, where do I start? I think the first thing, you guys, is as much as we're on social media, I think there's a lot of potential negativity and dangers from filling our minds with negative information. And I think I'm a true believer that you begin to encapsulate and be what you take in constantly, right? And there's so much information. I mean, the first thing I would do is limit the amount of information you're going to do about the COVID. Get your news feed, make it short, make it sweet, get what you need, because you need to be educated, but don't spend an inordinate amount of time with that, right? And so get the information. But what I really believe is it so much depends on how you start your day. And when you wake up, so much of us are bombarded by our media, our phones, and so on. So I'm really trying hard that the first thing I do is don't look at my phone, don't look at my computer, but do some stuff in the morning that I find really enjoyable, whatever that is. It could be exercise, it could be meditation, prayer, reading something inspirational, something that gets you going off on the right foot. And through the day, I think techniques that I'm sure, Michael, your guests have talked about, whether it's exercise, socializing with friends that really get you and don't get you more nervous and excited and anxious, right? We've all got those guys who go, look, buddy, I can't go into this right now. This is too much, right? And they feed into all the things. And I find that those little things make a difference. But man, it's a daily grind. But I think once you start doing it, I think it makes a difference. And Amanda, I love what you said about how you've used this opportunity to face your fears, right? To get into your head. To me, the only thing we can control, I think, is what we think and how we adjust to what's out there. This is our greatest gift that we have. It's our choices that we make.
Wow, it's a very non-medical way to look at it, right? I mean, the typical medical way to look at it would not be what you just described. And sometimes people need more than that, right? But
Yeah.
you're talking about someone who right now may not be in crisis, but may be kind of knocking on the door of crisis because of the pandemic that is really consuming everybody's thoughts at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. There's always obviously a tipping point where you go from these sort of very useful practical measures to where you need much more, I guess, intensive treatment, right, with meds or other things. But geez, this whole thing with the pandemic is affecting all of us and increasing our anxiety, even if you're not anxious, to a level where you're really just preoccupied and consumed with that. I think all of us can start with some of these practical tips, and depending on the layer of impairment or function, then we may need other treatments, Michael. But I just find these little daily things are huge. At least I'm finding it, and I'm passing that on. Hey, Amanda, what do you think?
Everything you're saying, I was just nodding my head aggressively because I agree with so much of that. I think, when this all first started, I was glued to my phone. I was reading every single thing, like all the think pieces, like checking in daily on the death toll. And it's just like, I realized like, this is not helping anything. This is not helping me being like, yes, we need to be informed. And as rules change, we need to be informed about that. But you can get that very quickly. Like in LA, they send out through text message if there's like been a new change in kind of guidelines or protocols or whatever. And aside from that, it does not help me. I do not benefit from knowing how many more people died. That does not change my day to know that, except it just puts me into a darker place. And to not start your day off on your phone. And I think for me, I've found helpful, just even in my journey in general, is like there's so much information out there about how to self-care. And I think that now that whole thing has been kind of turned into its own kind of commercial industry, but figuring out what works for you and that you play around with that a bit. But like you were saying, like whether it's meditation, whether it's prayer, or you read something or you move your body, it's like, it's going to be different for everybody, but there's so much power in figuring out what that is for you. And also that changes day to day. Like some days I really enjoy journaling and other days it's like the last thing I want to do. And maybe I want to read or whatever, but like figuring out what works for you. And I actually have on my phone, like in the notes app, I have this list of things that are like my self-care things that make me feel good, so that I don't even have to think about like, what do I want right now? I can just look at that list and whatever, jumps out to me, that's the thing that I'm going to do to like self-soothe or take care of myself.
Yeah. I think the other thing is obviously, Amanda, it took you a while to get so consistent, right? Because I find a lot of us, man, all we can do is try our best. It's difficult to do this kind of stuff every day, right? But what I just say to myself and to those my kids and family and to my patients is, don't give up. Just get up every day, try your very best. Don't beat yourself up. Come back the next day and keep trying. It's these little gains that we do that add up to larger gains in the future. You can't do it all at once, right? It's like going to that gym and figuring it all out, but get up, keep doing it. Don't give up. Let's be consistent. And then you get to the point where you have that tipping point where it just becomes a part of who you are. And it sounds like, Amanda, that's what you had to do, because you dealt with an amazingly difficult past symptoms and complex conditions, but look at where you got, right? That's an inspiration, I think, to anybody out there living with this, of what you can by not giving up and being consistent. And look how long it took you to find the right therapist, right?
Yes.
Like you got to find that fit with your doc or your therapist, but keep trying. Don't give up.
Do not give up.
Do not give up. Yeah.
I was listening to what you were saying, and one of the things I found in my life, doing the whole SickNotWeak thing and speaking about it and tweeting about it like virtually every single day and doing a blog every day, you think a lot about these things and you find ways to make them portable. And what you were saying, to me, I would summarize by saying, I win because I choose to fight. Just choosing to fight is a victory in itself. And while we may not feel at the end of the day like we want to feel, we may still be struggling, but just the fact that you fought it is good for your self-esteem. And you have to take pride in things in your life that other people wouldn't take pride in. I call it proud of the shower. You have to celebrate your small victories, because for you, they can be massive victories. And one victory that you can be proud of, I think, leads to the next one.
Right. Michael, can I just ask you a question? It's like, I think a lot of us know what we ought to do and where we ought to be. Where did it get to where it became a part of who you were, this thing about choosing? Like, because I think I struggle with getting my patients motivated to get there. Any tips, you guys, of what it took you to get to where those changes became a part of who you were?
You know, I think that one of the challenges with depression, which is what I know best, is that I think one of the symptoms is lack of motivation, lack of purpose, lack of inspiration for anything, and it takes it out of you, and then that magnifies the challenge that much greater. And I think if you're lucky enough to have someone who cares about you, that person that cares about you can best serve you by pushing you, by encouraging you. And sometimes, you know, when you can't get off the couch, you can't get help. And sometimes you need someone to frame it this way, that you are giving up your life to your illness, that you do not have an illness that can't be helped. But for sure, it's not going to be helped if you're on the couch. And I think that one of the things I try to encourage people to do is research, Google depression, symptoms of depression, treatments of depression, learn about your illness so you're not beholden to the doctor that you go to see, so you understand it, and that you understand that there is hope. Because if you're hopeless, that's when you lie on the couch. That's when you stay in bed. And sadly, that's when you end your life.
Right. Wow.
I was reading that, by the way. Yeah. Just a little bit to the side. Oh, no, it was on teleprompter. Sorry. Yeah. This was great. Oh my gosh. You know, I think it's like I fall, like it's like I bond with guests in this context. Now, this is only the 5th show we've done, but it's like I always wanted to do something like this. And it took COVID-19 to sort of push us to say, okay, well, you know, like there's instead of having, you know, a small part of the population that perhaps is attracted to the topic, there's a whole bunch of people now that are coming new to it. And it's just so amazing for me to find somebody like Amanda who's willing to go out and say, hey, yeah, you know what? I've struggled, I've battled, I've been through it all, and I'm not ashamed or embarrassed. And then to have a doctor who speaks the language of the patient, I think is so inspiring and just gives me faith for the future. So this was great, guys.
It's amazing, you know, and just guys, with the two of you, I just want to say something that I think I've been inspired by my patients. My patients actually inspire me to look at my life in a different way, you know. And I used to think when I started this that there was such a divide between my patients and me. And as I've done this, I'm going, no, there's really no division. We're all human. We all are susceptible to this. And I've been taught more by my patients than any book and conference that I ever attend. But I want to say something that I think is hopeful that my patients are teaching me, is that I think we can use this pandemic to change our lives. And I think nothing happens without reasons. And, you know, whatever you believe in, this is happening, and then how we choose to react to it is important. And to me, this could be the beginning of what our destiny could be. Like, what is it that we can make of this, right? And to repurpose our mission and vision for our lives. It could really be a catalyst, because we have time. We're going to get closer to the people we love, you know. And for me, it's like, you know, I'm thinking, like, you know, who do I really love? Who do I want to hang out with? And what am I really doing with my life? And what does my life look like? And I think that's something that I would like to be able to leave with, for you two, obviously, but for everybody that's listening, is this is an opportunity to be a game changer for your life, to really look at your mission and your vision. You should not be the same person after this is all done. Let's not go back to the way we always have been. Let's move to progress, to that level, which I think we were meant to be.
I think we got to have a reunion.
So
yeah. Yeah, you know what? The two of you are really in sync, right? There's a certain spiritual level to what you're talking about. I don't mean religious level, but there's a certain organic nature, and the obligation on my part is every time you host a show, you have to use the word organic. It's in the rule book. I'm sorry, it's not my fault, but it's written right there. I've learned a lot from both of you, and okay, so hang on because we try to put a humor. But you can see I'm just trying to be the usual smartass that I am, and not kind of thinking, okay, well, this is a very serious topic and we have to treat it seriously. You can be serious about the topic without being serious. Right. So there was a preacher who was speaking to the illness. And we found this clip, and I asked Sean Cullen, comedian, who was on this show last week, who's a funny guy, posting all the time on Twitter, just reacting to things in the news. I asked him to react to this. So first of all, listen to the preacher, and I'll hear your reaction, and then we'll hear his. Roll it, Phil.
Thank you, our God. Thank you, our God. Let it happen. Let it happen. Cause it to happen. Cause it to happen. COVID-19. COVID-19. I blow the wind of God. The wind of God. On you. On you. You are destroyed forever. You are destroyed forever. And you'll never be back. And you'll never be back. Thank you, our God. Thank you, our God. Let it happen. Let it happen. Cause it to happen. Cause it to happen.
Guys, I don't know. Could you hear what was going on? Could you see what was going on?
No, I couldn't.
It's okay, because I saw it and I couldn't hear it now, but I heard it before. So just hang in there for a second, and I'm not going to ask you to comment on it because that'd be kind of weird. No, we didn't hear it or we didn't see it. Well, give us a comment.
That's what I've seen all week.
Yeah, exactly. And Sean Cullen, like I said, comedian, I sent it to him and said, hey, I'd love for you to comment about it. So here's Sean Cullen's response. Roll it, Phil.
Lick away the virus. Wash your hands. Wipe your bums. My name is Reverend Jessica St. James, and this is the COVID-19 Online Comedy Fest. And I am telling you that it is time to wash away this virus from the face of the earth. You are getting a lot of advice from false leaders and false prophets, and I'm telling you that the only thing that can wash away this virus, this evil COVID-19 devil's virus, is the tongue of God. The mighty tongue of God entering into your life. Here it comes. Feel the pebbly tongue of God licking away the virus. Licking your eyes. Licking your hands. Do not believe in false prophets. Do not believe in the leaders who tell you to wash your hands. Let the tongue of God lick away the virus. Wash your hands. Wipe your bums.
That is so funny. Amanda, you're an actor, right? So could you give us like a little laughter, even though you didn't get to hear what Sean was doing, but just kind of roll with it, okay? Oh my God.
It's the
How funny was
funniest thing
that?
I've seen all week. Funniest thing I've seen all week.
All right, take two. Let's go with all month, okay? So that is Sean Cullen, COVID-19 Online Comedy Fest. That's the hashtag. He posts a couple of times a day, and he's just pretty freaking funny. And also, he's a guy who's spoken openly and candidly. He was in a show called The Producers and talked about how, it was like the dream job, and his life was falling apart until he acknowledged the fact that he had to get help. This was great fun, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. Give us, I'm going to say 10 days and come back and do this again. How about that?
Down to come back anytime.
Hey, Michael.
You, Doc?
Yeah, sounds good. Nice to meet you, Amanda. It's great.
Nice to meet you too.
Yeah, Michael, great job. Keep it up.
Thank you. Thank you. And I was going to put my glasses on, but one of the problems was I put hair product in my hair just before, and now I can't see through my freaking glasses. But I will say that at the end of the show, I try to give a message every time. The first show, it was loneliness. It's not about the number of people around you. It's the number of people who understand you. The second show was, I will fight this enemy to the day of my death, but the enemy will not be the cause of my death. Third day, it was suicide makes no sense until it does. Yesterday it was fight for your happiness, and today it's proud of the shower. Got to celebrate the little things. Thanks to Jansen for supporting us and saying, hey, go out and do something good for people. We hope that we did, and we will be back here tomorrow at this exact same place at roughly the exact same time. I'm Michael Landsberg. The name of the charity is SickNotWeak, and the name of the show is Isolation Nation. See you tomorrow. Take care of yourselves.